Good morning. Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on Citizen Television. Thank you for staying with us. The Nairobi County Senator is with us in the studio, as well as the Secretary General of the ODM Party, the Deputy Minority Whip. Hussein Khalid is the Haki Africa Executive Director, and Silvanus Osoro is the Majority Whip in the National Assembly, as well as the MP representing South Mugirango constituency. Yes, Hussein, you had a point. Please proceed.
Ayub, and for me, I think it's very perplexing, sitting between two very distinguished gentlemen with, brilliant minds, and listening to what is being said. And that puts us, civil society, and I think the, general populace in, disarray. Because we can't be sitting here and, somehow justifying comments that were made by a leader, in a way indicating that private property will be invaded. Honestly, we cannot in any way justify that. Again, we know that, demonstrations have been held, and Mheshimiwa here said that, when does violence begin? But when violence begins, it doesn't justify that you hit back violently also. Because some of the establishments that we actually end up, robbing or, breaking into are not owned by those individuals who in the first place, quote unquote, probably started the violence. These are innocent people who have their establishments. It took someone maybe a lifetime of savings to get to where they are. So there is no way we can then justify and say, because the police started tear gassing, then the people were justified to go and break into someone's property.
That's not what I said.
Yes, you asked, when does violence begin?
So when does it begin?
It may be so that it begins from, an officer throwing tear gas or shooting or something like that. It's possible, and that's very correct. But in response to that police action, it cannot be justified that then protesters go and vandalize another private person's property.
I agree.
The same way, we have to ask ourselves, how do you justify a leader standing up in public and saying that private property will be invaded? By now, that person should have been called by the NCIC. And these are the issues that we as civil society are also asking. We have institutions that are supposed to be, dealing with the issues that are here before us today. I think the other day, and DPP is a good friend of mine, and he issued orders, to be given files for those who are involved in the protest and, engaging in all these things. We also want the DPP to tell us what they are doing to require that police are held accountable for failing to protect life and property. There are people who've been killed in protests. That's absolutely unacceptable.
By who? By who?
By the police. The shoot to kill in Maseno and other places in Kisumu. We have to be fair. And their institutions that are mandated have been given the powers by the law to ensure, and I think it's in one of the papers today, where the buck stops at. And these are questions that we must ask. And for me, for my brothers who are here, and I said this very clearly, Kenya is blessed with brilliant minds. And they include the two gentlemen who are in the studio here today. We might see this as an opportunity for us to defend our political parties, for us to go out there and, hold a position and say, this is what but the message that goes through to the people, from the discussions and the positions and the grandstanding that we are, holding here, the message that goes down to the people is absolutely clear, that you cannot in any way accept to be, convinced otherwise. And that is something we must start thinking, because as youth and youthful leaders in this country, we are supposed to be the agents of change.
Thank you.
For those who are out there, they've been there for many years. It's difficult. Sisi Waswahili tunasema samaki mkunje angali mbichi. And we expect leadership from the leaders that, are seated here and in many other places. And if we are able to do that, if we're able to do that and be, very clearly this is the law, for example, that protests are a right, and there is absolutely no one, not the IG, not the cabinet secretary, not even the president can deny the people that right. But then if we go out there and then we say, you cannot, or the police have done ABCD, or the protesters have done ABCD, and you can see people, protesters selling, we saw that, stones, 5 shillings, 10 shillings, And it's clear to everyone. We saw that.
Thank you.
But then if we don't speak up against that,
all right,
and we don't hold those institutions accountable as leaders here, I think then we're not doing service to our country.
Thank you. Yes, Senator.
Kwanza, my brother should not fall for internet memes. There's nobody who buys things that are available for free. How foolish are you? You don't have money and you're going to buy stones. Stones are available for free. Nobody buys stones. That was
the message that's being sent.
Let me make a point.
What is the message being sent out there?
I listened to you.
I'll give you the time to respond.
And also, when you make these allegations, you must link them to me. Because I'm not the one who was selling stones. It was not Azimio leadership selling stones. It was just some random people.
It was Azimio members selling stones.
Let me go to this question that Soros raised on the question of my comments on the people who help themselves to state-funded food in Kisumu. Two distinctions, Ahmed. Number one, I spoke after the event, not before. So I was not the one who was inciting them to do it. And number two, I was seated in the Senate. A leader of the majority side, Senator Khalwale, stood up and he actually lambasted and insulted the entire people of Luo Nyanza, saying these people don't deserve development, they are archaic, they are backward, because of that incident. And I stood up and I said, these events, you have called the public to a public event. This is CAK, it's a commission that we fund.
Okay.
It's ours.
So
a public entity.
You're saying what you said verbatim.
You see, like even Osoro, yes,
okay.
It is there. It is there. It is on record. It's even on the answer.
All right.
Osoro is a politician. He hosts people at his home. Osoro, if you call your friends as your members of parliament, then there is a crowd there. Then you guys are sitting here eating, and these people have not eaten. You know, even from an African culture, it is not right. You call people to a food symposium, because that CAK thing was a food symposium. At a time when people are hungry, you have bought food only for yourselves, and then you expect people to sit and look at you eating. It is inhuman. So it is inhuman for you to do that. So I spoke.
I will hold him to account.
And I said, Ahmed.
Be patient.
Ahmed.
Ayub.
Yes. Ayub, there's a distinction between public property and private property. I have never said anybody should help themselves to people's private property.
What did you say specifically?
I said, if you go to a public event, you find them laid food there and they have not made provision for you, because that food has been bought with your money, you have a right to help yourself to that.
Okay, this is my question.
Yes.
Then.
So,
okay, before you proceed,
yes,
because you are a leader in this country, and the senator who garnered almost nearly 800,000 votes in Nairobi,
yes,
and that is very critical for the masses you speak for,
yes,
with your roles that double up as well as representation, legislation, and oversight. You hold a public office as well, isn't it?
What is your question?
My question is, you hold a public office, don't you?
That is obvious. Everybody knows I hold a public office.
Would it be right for someone to say Sifuna's office is public, therefore you can crowd?
My office is actually public.
Okay.
They can come to KICC anytime.
Okay.
And that's why I'm here.
Okay.
And yes. Your food. By the way, we eat with them.
Okay.
We eat with them there.
Okay.
Yes. No, those who come to my office. They can come to my office. My office is a public.
So 800,000 voters and the people of Nairobi can crowd your office Monday to Friday?
Let them come. Okay. If I can work miracles like Jesus with 5 loaves and 5 fish, we will share. Well, but let me finish my point.
Okay.
Let me finish my point, my brother. The distinction with what Kimani Ichung'wah said, because he's saying it's a precaution. First of all, I wish you could play the entire statement by Kimani Ichung'wah. He started by a false premise, something that he has not provided evidence for, saying if Uhuru Kenyatta continues to fund Azimio, these looters and the others, that's what he said. If he continues funding Azimio to destroy other people's property, we will also come and destroy his property. So he needs to provide evidence of that financing, that Uhuru Kenyatta is the one financing Azimio, not protest, people to invade other people's property. So in the absence of that proof, then you cannot call it a cautionary statement. I will answer him when he asks, where were the police when people were invading Northlands? They were beating us. That is where the police were. They were tear gassing us. They were dousing us with those water canisters. They were attacking the media. Because imagine it took 24 hours for the police to appear at Northlands, but it took them only 10 minutes from the time that we left Chungwa House to reach Kawangware. They were there with us. Then I want to give this assurance. We as the leadership of Azimio are very clear. We have told our supporters that our problem is not with anybody's private business. That is not our beef, because attacking somebody's supermarket does not result in you getting IBC to be reconstituted in a fair manner. And those people who attack private businesses have taken themselves out of the realm of the protection of the Constitution. It is the responsibility of the police. And even as late as last week, the High Court told the police that their responsibility is to protect those private businesses. If Sifuna lives here today and goes and attacks a supermarket, that's not a protester. That is a criminal. And the people to arrest criminals are the police.
Thank you.
We have had an event. Let me finalize on this. I will say no more.
Yes.
We have had an event here in Nairobi in 2018. Almost 1 million people showed up to swear in Raila Odinga at Uhuru Park. The police pulled back. It was a peaceful event, and immediately Raila finished the oath. Those people left and went home. I want you to tell me how many shops were looted that day. None. We are saying the one thing that you can remove from these protests that will make them peaceful is the police.
Thank you. Hussein, I'll come to you on the conduct of the police and the formation of the police service in the aftermath of the 07-08 violence. But Sylvana, so sorry, you have a point to respond to that?
Yeah, I have several points.
Okay.
You see, one's rights ends where my right starts from. And I think Honorable Sifuna should also explain to the public that the responsibility of the picket, it's actually moral responsibility of the picketer or the protester, to make sure that everything is, or the organizer of the protest, to make sure that they are peaceful. Now look at what happens. You see, they read this thing selectively, Article 37, that, they have a right to picket, they have a right to assemble, that is how they read it. But look at how they conduct it. Number one, you are supposed to notify the police through the OCS about the route you want to use, and seek protection through the time that you want to do and everything. But here, Raila Odinga and Azimio are asking for people to protest countrywide. Of course, it really didn't turn out well for them, because it's only Kisumu that obeyed and Nairobi. And then in Nairobi, it's only Mathare and Kibra, at least from what we've seen, ideally. And when you look deeply, you realize that these are just merely, supporters of some specific politicians that are called upon to come out and, just protest and such like that. But what happens within that period? Even before the police come in, what happens before that period? What they do, immediately they come out. You've even seen a video that, watatuona leo. You've seen such videos across. I mean, they're all over. These people will see us. They hit at motor vehicles who are not the police. Okay. Yes, that is true. They ban offices like they did in Kisumu. Were the police guarding, or what was happening in the UD offices in Kisumu? Okay. Why did they have to ban a private vehicle in Kisumu? Were they hiding there or something? Were they looking for servers in the UD offices in Kisumu? Were they looking for food prices to be lowered from 190 to about 70, like they say in Mwindibwausi's shop or Kebaso's bar in Kibra? So this whole thing, once they want to blame the police, but ideally they instruct their supporters to affect. That is why they call it a public holiday. Okay. If you want to protest, why do you tell people that don't come out because it's a public holiday? And then by the irony of it, you even saw some people going to hit Spectre International, whatever farm associated with Raila Odinga. And you saw people coming out on that very day saying, we were not hurt and such like that. Yet Raila had declared a public holiday. What were they doing inside there? Okay. If it's a public holiday, why were they working?
This is my question. Okay, this is my question. Along the line of institutions, constitutionalism, and the rule of law, Honorable Sora, because you have mentioned about the notification to the police. For example, then, as a lawmaker, a lawyer for that matter, the Azimio coalition leadership handed the police a notice on Wednesday last week for them to protest on Monday. That was about 5 days before.
To our wrong recipients.
Okay, just 5 days before.
Yes.
Well, the delivery happened at Vigilance House, which is the police headquarters, where the police headquartered. Adam Sombungei, the police commander for the county, wasn't there to receive the petition. I mean, just as a lawyer and as a parliamentarian for that matter, then where does the line lie when it comes to the issues of how independent and capacitated institutions are like the police?
No. There is the Constitution, Article 37, then there is the Public Orders Act, and that really must be there too. The addressee of that letter should be the OCS, the officer commanding police station. And when you address him, you define the route you want to use and you seek protection. These people, out of drama, just to dramatize the whole thing and make police look bad, they write a letter addressed to the county police commander. I mean, really, you can't address the county. You can't address that letter to the county police commander. Okay. You need to. The picketer should have a specific route within a certain jurisdiction, not randomly saying we are looking for servers in Kibra or Madare. I mean, really, it is. Okay. And then you've got to do. Initially, what they told us, and I think this should be very clear. Okay, briefly. They say they have a petition that they want to present to His Excellency the President at State House. That's what they said. To date, they haven't, they have not, I think they lost route to State House, possibly. And I think I need to tell Sifuna, if he has the petition with him right now, he should give me, because after here I should be, in State House. And I'll hand over to the President, and everything will be,
this is brilliant. I think coming from the two of them, yes. And if they can provide that leadership, if we can have the two of them, just coming in and saying, okay, we are going to work together, whatever message needs to be sent. I mean, for me, that would be brilliant. But yes, and as lawyers, we understand the Public Order Act, and there's a reason why it's 3 to 14 days. Yeah, between 3 to 14 days. So if you have an issue, if maybe a notice has been presented to the wrong officer, then you have a duty and a responsibility as the police to direct and say, look, this is not how you're supposed to do it. If you want to do this, do A, B, C, D. And if that is the case, then you respond and you make sure that the law is followed, But for me, I think this is something that we all have to be clear here. I know they'll say they don't have control over protesters or they don't have control over the police, but definitely they have influence. They definitely have influence. And if these gentlemen can just accept that responsibility, that yes, we have that influence, and that we want to send a very strong message to both, that you can't use live bullets against individuals who are protesting, that you can't vandalize private property in that, protesting, then I think for me, that would be the beginning, first of all.
But live bullets haven't been used.
Don't justify saying, we didn't start it. These are the people who started. And, or saying we have to use live bullets, we have to use property. And we know the courts have pronounced themselves on this. Okay. Yeah, you cannot use the excuse of killing when it comes to property. Okay, so these are issues that are very clear to everyone. Okay, and they have been, discussed in Parliament, in the public, in courts, and we all have to be very clear. And I think the gentlemen who are seated here today can provide that leadership. Okay, but
Khalid, of utmost concern is that earlier on you mentioned about police bullets that fell some protesters.
Yes.
And here is where I need us to introspect, because looking at the report that is the Commission into the Post-Election Violence Report, CIPV, it indicated that 1 in 3 of those killed in the aftermath of the post-election violence were as a result of police bullet, necessitating the formation of the police service, that is the National Police Service, and in the aftermath of the post-election violence. How then do we restrain ourselves from not getting there, despite the independence guaranteed by the Constitution?
Because that's the law. The law provides us with directions on how to handle issues. And as it stands today, police are the sole institution that is responsible for safety, for protection of lives and property and everything. So we can't run away from that. But we must hold the police accountable. In the protest this week in Mombasa, there was a drunk officer. And I think it was out there for everyone with a publicly funded machine, AK-47. And we saw it in Mombasa. And these are questions we must ask. And we can't just say because we belong to one political side, and then we are always defending that political side, irrespective of the positions they hold, even when those positions are not supported by law.
Thank you.
And these are the issues we all have to agree on. And I'm pleading to my brothers. Okay. These are brilliant minds, and I'll keep repeating that, in our country. And we are expecting leadership from them. It may be too late, but if they are committed in delivering for this country, they can actually marshal their sides to support that discussion or that, whatever it may be, so that we can get peace in this country.
Yes, Senator.
First of all, it is quite laughable that I am being given directions to State House as a senator of Nairobi by somebody from Mugirango. Osoro. I know every inch of this city. I have covered it, and that's why you saw me getting those numbers that my brother was talking about there in the election. When I get lost in Mugirango, I will call you, because I know you understand that area very well. Number two, tell your president to stop barricading himself in State House if he wants us to come there, because why is he hiding behind the police? He has told us that we should face him mundo kumundo. And this other pseudo Mau Mau who calls himself a child of Mau Mau, he's hiding behind the police. If Rigathi can just come in front of the police to receive our petition, we'll be very happy. Remove the police, we will come into KICC, we will do our dance around the statue of Kenyatta the way we were doing the other time, and we were tear gassed. Remove the police from the barricades. Even today, you yourself have seen, when we've come into the studio, they wake up very early to put barricades to State House. These are people who are cowards. They are hiding behind the police. I want to address this question of a notice. We have not seen the OCS for Kilimani here. We have not seen him standing up before the press saying, I have not received a notice, or that he is banning protest. The people who are making these unconstitutional pronouncements are Bungei and the IG of police. So when we serve the police stations, and I want to confirm here that in fact every single police station in Nairobi has been served with a notification of protests. This exercise of the rights under Article 37 caused some inconveniences. Again, as a senator of Nairobi, I want to give you an example. We have events here which don't happen in Mugirango, like we have bike races, we have marathons. They cause inconveniences, they cause road closures. The exercise of political rights have some consequences. You cannot say, oh, your rights begin where mine end. No. These are political rights, and the way we give life to political rights is to exercise them. Ayub, the purpose of notification of police is to invite them to protect or to provide security for the protesters. But we have, in our experience, realized it doesn't matter how much we comply with the law. We have complied with the law, the Public Order Act, Article 37. They are still going to unconstitutionally declare our protests illegal. So what we have done, we are no longer going to issue notices. Let us exercise our right under Article 37. Protests will happen spontaneously, anywhere, anytime, without any notification to the police, because we have realized that the notifications are no longer invitations for them to provide security, but they are an invitation for them to visit violence on us. There is a rule when we were in law school, and these brothers of mine understand, it's called the but-for rule, that without which this cannot happen. But for this would not happen. I am telling you, but for police action, this protest will be peaceful. Remove police action. Remove police action from these things, and you will see our people will come to town. They will dance at KICC the way we came to Uhuru Park to swear in Baba. We will say whatever it is we want to say because we have the freedom of speech. Okay. The freedom of speech is not limited by me. I can insult you under my freedom of speech. The only limitation to freedom of speech is propaganda for war. They know it. Incitement to violence, but me using unpleasant language to you is protected under the Constitution. I don't have to please your ears, Osoro. Okay. But I am protected under this Constitution to use the words that, when I say leo mutatuona, how is that unconstitutional? How is that breaking the law? So for us, really, we want to say we will no longer issue these notices because it serves no purpose. They'll do so now you can do whatever it is you want to do. On the question of the UDA office in Kisumu, I, again, as a senator of Nairobi, I have a predecessor here. His name is Mike Sonko. He himself confessed in public that in fact these are tactics they used against opposition protests. They would get old cars, ban them, and then say, oh, this is ODM. No, you can't really use. He confessed. But you can't Just a minute. Also, what I am saying is... I'm the river. What I am saying is... that position. Yes, what I am saying is... I'll hold you to account on what happened. Just what I'm saying is... Before you proceed... There is a precedent in these things because the protest in Kisumu is not as if that... In fact, you know, you guys... You want me to say things that I shouldn't say on this show, but I'm saying, if I wanted to destroy a house, I can destroy a house. Like you did. Okay. It was not destroyed. Thank you. The house was not destroyed. Like you guys did in Wetlands. These are cosmetic things that are arranged there to present, because the protesters in Kisumu have been going on for a long time. It's not as if that is the only government-owned or... Okay, Senator, I understand your point.
But where does responsibility lie? do you condemn what happened?
You can't,
listen,
you can't
Yes, I'm going to
listen, why would I not
Let's have some order.
I have said here that it is not the aim of protests to destroy anybody's property, to attack private property, to attack anybody during this protest. In fact, the responsibility of the police is to make sure that people who take themselves outside the protection of Article 37 are brought to book. We have pictures, we have photographs of those people. Arrest them.
Okay.
And then, when you arrest those people, please, before you blame me, you have to draw a nexus, a connection between their actions and my pronouncements as a political movement. We want, if those people who went to Northlands, up to today, nobody has been arrested. Their photographs are all over the newspaper, in the social media.
But
the number plates of vehicles that were cutting up, they are known.
Senator,
when those people are arrested, ask them whether there is a connection, a nexus between their actions and the things that
before the arrests are made, and that is a mandate that lies with an agency of government.
With the police, yes. So don't ask me.
Okay, I made your point.
Please.
Okay, they're asking about it that you are a leader in this country.
Yes.
And you condemn violence for that.
I do condemn violence. Police violence, violence meted out by goons. I
cannot condemn violence.
I have just condemned it.
Okay, thank you.
I am condemning it, and you are saying I can't condemn it. I am condemning it.
We have.
Can I be allowed to condemn it?
Clearly. And that is the answer that
I'm not being allowed to condemn it. I'm condemning it and shouting.
That is the answer that I wanted for accountability purposes.
I condemn violence in all its forms.
Thank you.
You know, it is actually...
please.
No. You see, there is a reason why I am really insisting that he really can't condemn violence. Because he's actually violent himself.
He did.
I'll say this. It's on record. About 2 or 3 years ago, when we had a by-election in Kibra, you saw Honorable Sifuna in a public rally saying, on Tuesday or whatever day it was, I want to see Halwale run. You know? And you know, it really happened. I want to see Baraza, Didmas Baraza run. I want you to hit Didmas Baraza.
I did.
All those, I don't know whether it was cautionary sentiments or something.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Immediately it happened. He still came out celebrating, you know, in public and saying, you know, you guys did justice. You know, that is how it should happen. So it is actually right when it's done on somebody who is perceived, according to him, a political nemesis. So ideally, for Sifuna and the likes of Azimio, they enjoy violence when it's beneficial to them. Now, I want to see them condemn what happened to the people who do small businesses in Kibra, not just really focusing on Northlands.
We condemn.
Just condemning and not really protecting. And I really want to insist on that. You saw Kebaso, there's a gentleman called Kebaso, he lost his business in Kibra. There's a lady that, out of course, protest and such like that, lost her son. We haven't seen ODM visit them or Azimio visit them.
How did the son die?
Or such like that. We haven't. Because
how did the son die?
Are you sending the people, you know, you're sending them to provoke the police officers and such? Because also, you see, even as we talk about the protests and that, talk about the 24 police officers who were injured. Are police not human? Can they be protected? Like, a police officer should be hit by a stone thrower and we keep quiet. He should just die because he's a police officer. Why do we just focus on the police, on things that have been done against the public and not against the police officers? Those are our sons and daughters. You've seen on videos people throwing stones at police and arrows. I saw in Kisumu, you know, learning how to throw arrows because they actually do not know, you know, trying to target the police officers. But even then, why are these people very dishonest? Because at the time, slightly before elections, the price of unga was at 230 shillings. I mean, really, it's in public domain. No, even with the unga subsidy, it was at about 233, 235.
That's a lot.
Right now, it is true. I mean, the Kenyans know. Right now, the price of unga is at 190. And because we are putting measures, you know, subsidy should be on production, and we are putting measures, you know, to curb this whole cost of living and such like that. Will you reduce the cost of unga by putting a sufuria on the head and walk around Nairobi and say, I'm Senator Nairobi, and I got 800,000 votes, and I have sufuria on the head? Really? This is a lawyer, a counsel, a landed guy putting a sufuria on the head and telling people that we'll help you reduce the cost of unga. We'll tell William Ruto to declare the prices at 70 shillings. What kind of, you know, it's a very funny thing.
Okay.
This is... You're telling your supporters that, you know, we are going to edge out William Ruto from State House and we'll take over. That's a lawyer saying.
Okay. I'll hold you both parliamentarians. I'll hold you both parliamentarians to account as we go forward in the course of this broadcast as to the policy directions that ought to be taken by the bicameral parliament. And you sit in a house where you, the senator, and a member of the National Assembly, is the only entity that can impeach the President of the Republic.
Exactly.
That is the power that you bear.
Exactly.
And also declare a state of war and emergency, otherwise approve KDF's deployment elsewhere within the country or even outside within the course of this broadcast. Yes, Hussein, please proceed.
I think for me, it goes beyond condemning violence, particularly for these two who have been here, and I believe millions are watching. We also have to condemn police inaction. Police inaction in Kibera, for example. I was there just the day after, the burning of the mosque and the church. And the people were very clear. They were angry because initially only the religious leaders and civil society were allowed to speak. And they were angry and they were saying, you've just come here. We also want to speak and we want to, air our grievances. And their grievances were very clear, that they called the authorities, they called the police to come before things got worse. But then no one came. Yeah, we saw what happened in Northlands. 24 hours later is when the police are going there. So we have to condemn the violence. We have to condemn the police inaction. We have to, our duty and our responsibility is to hold each and every private and public institutions accountable. So that's number one. So we have to be fair on both sides. Secondly, we are asking the gentleman here to go a step further than just to condemn. Do something, as you've said, to ensure that this does not continue. Whether it's through, parliament, whether it's through our political parties, the sides that we belong to, we have to push for something to be done, because we can be here and the time is almost over. But then what are we committing to as we move forward from this studio? Are we saying that, holding on to our positions the way we came in, that we are still holding on to that we have a right to protest, yes, but then no action to, perhaps control the protesters in the event should they also decide to engage in violence? Are we saying that, police will be allowed to use excessive force, against people who are exercising their right to protest? Are we saying that, people can invade private property without even us doing anything? So for me, I'm glad there's condemnation of what is happening around, and we are agreeing that, yes, this is not right. But then I'm asking and pleading, and to the gentlemen here and also their political divides, to do something. Because now we are clearly understanding here that what is happening is not right.
Okay, Hussein, when you talk about that and the inaction that also yesterday the Kenya National Human Rights Commission pointed out,
yes,
an international commission of jurists.
Yes.
When we had created Katiba 2010 and the vast array of independent institutions that were born out of the constitution that we hold as the supreme law in Kenya, it was for the police to be independent in their operations. And that's what the president insisted upon when he met the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, of course following the events in the country back home. But I wonder, why then do you think still in terms of operations there seems to be a slow response to some? Is it because of the executive's influence, and why the incapacitation of the existing capacity?
I think there's obviously influence. I mean, if you look at, what is being said out there, if we are guided by the constitution and the laws of the land, it should be very simple, it should be very clear. For example, just speaking to the issue before us here today, the right to protest. Article 37 is very clear. The Public Order Act, you don't need a license. You're not asking for permission from the police. I know this because we hold protests ourselves as civil society. It is a notice. You are notifying the police. You're not asking the police for permission. You are simply telling them that we are going to protest. And you do that so that they offer protection, not just to protesters, but also to the businesses and, other private persons who may not be interested or may not be participating in that protest. And that's the purpose of the Public Order Act. It's very clear. 3 days to 14 days. 3 days so that police have ample time to prepare, and 14 days so that it's not too much time before they can even make a judgment on how to support you.
Thank you.
Yeah. But there's clear influence, and I think that this is open, and for every Kenyan, it's out there for them to see. If you look at the Northlands case, if you look at the Kibera case, there are so many people who tweeted. Yeah, Boniface Mwangi, for example, kept insisting on tweets. Where are the police? We want to see the police before things get out of hand in Kibera. But there was silence. There was nothing of the kind. So we are asking the police to discharge their mandate in accordance to the constitution and the laws of the land. and not to be influenced either way,
all right,
to support any political divide. Because if the police are influenced, then my friend Ayub, I don't know where we're going to.
Okay, thank you. And that is the concern was on the selective deployment of the police and to some areas.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can. But just a point of information to Honorable Silvana Sosoro, the cheapest is 193 shillings across random checks in the supermarkets. That's what my team's brief.
Yeah, 193.
Now this
exactly, and it was 230.
No.
In the previous regime.
That was just a point of information. Proceed, Senator.
Because you are doing the fact checking.
Yes.
I posted a receipt here of the price of unga in June and July of last year. When we went into the election because of the subsidy, I was buying unga at Naivas and Aga Khan in Nairobi here in the CBD at 100 shillings. That was the price of unga when we went into the election because
that's a lie.
There was a subsidy.
Okay, just hang on.
And I will show him the receipt. You can call the management of Naivas if to authenticate that receipt. I want to explain something to Osoro that maybe is lost to him. That when you are a representative of a people, you represent the people who voted for you. I know the people who voted for me. I was not elected in Nairobi to represent lawyers. I used to serve at the LSK Council. I never used to wear sufurias on the head. I now represent the poorest of the poor in the urban populations of Nairobi. When I went into Kibra, I met this mama and she told me, Sifuna, I want you to take this sufuria because I no longer have any use for it. I have no food to cook. It is wasting space in my house. And she told me, because you are fighting for me, wacha nikufunike hii jua kijana yangu na hii sufuria. Haina kazi ingine, wewe jifunike didi. Those are the people who elected me, Osoro. Maybe in Mugirango, because you have rains and bananas grow widely, you have food to eat. I have a population in Nairobi that is unable to eat. These people will not understand the symbolism that mama was trying to do, to demonstrate. I am a person who understands. I wear many hats. When I'm in the streets, I am in the streets. When I'm on the floor of the Senate, I'm on the floor of the Senate. When I go to court, I put on a nice suit and appear before a magistrate. I am a lawyer. I am a representative of the poor, Osoro. And when my appearance is grotesque and incomprehensible to you, that woman who gave me that sufuria understands what I was doing as their representative. So don't get involved in these things because you don't understand. What we want to see, Ayub, Unga was 100, I can demonstrate it. They are saying that the subsidies were benefiting a few people. Who are they benefiting now? Where are the subsidies? In fact, what we see, instead of seeing, yes, we have saved this amount in the subsidies, we are going to apply it on the cost of fuel. You have asked us, as legislators, what we are doing. I sit on the Energy Committee of the Senate.
Okay.
We took Kenya Power to task because they used to send us a bill, a proper bill with a breakdown of every single charge. And I gave the example here that I bought tokens of 3,000 shillings and there's something called a fuel cost charge that took 700 shillings out of my bill. So we in the Senate asked the Kenya Power, what is this fuel cost charge? They told us that is the price you pay for the diesel that is used to generate electricity using the thermal power plants. So we went further and asked them, what can we do to reduce the number of thermal plants on our grid? And they gave us a simple solution that, in fact, we can take out Muhoroni and the Kipevu diesel plants by just building a line between the Sondu geothermal plant in South Nyanza and a line between the geothermals to Mombasa. Ayub, we were surprised that instead of us proceeding with that, Kenya Power decides now to bundle together all the costs so that we as the representative of the people cannot continue to identify the pain points so that we can be able to assuage the cost of living.
Thank you, Senator.
I want you to understand the point that I am making.
Okay.
That this government has no intention at all. They have no intention. In fact, David Ndii has told us that it was never their promise to lower the cost of electricity, and therefore the cost of living is going to go up. And the reason why they don't want to take those thermal plants from the grid is because they are the ones holding contracts for supply of diesel to those plants.
Thank you, Senator.
How soon? How soon?
Just, sorry, just hang on. I need some accountability questions. Senator, you sit at a very critical energy committee of the Senate. 13 companies sell power to the Kenya Power. One of the biggest bottlenecks to economic growth is power production. The cost of power is 4 times that of South Africa, which David Ndii mentioned. Quite this dichotomy from the statement that he made and the plan that they had for the country. KPLC procures power from IPP, that is the independent power producers, at an inflated price of 23 shillings kilowatt, that is kilowatt per hour. Then IPPs normally purchase electricity from KenGen, which is the state-run electricity generator, at approximately 0.5% kilowatt per hour before loading it to Kenya Power Lighting Company at an inflated price of 23 shillings. You sit at the Senate, and the Kenyan people look upon you. You were elected by the people of Nairobi, but that sovereignty binds the people. The question is then, how do you intend to change this situation?
Good. The sooner you get the question, the better, because I will explain to you what we are doing. I have given you an example of a very straightforward action that we took as the members of the Energy Committee: identify a pain point, look for a way to resolve it, find the solution, but then these characters start running circles around us. Do you know that the most expensive power plant is actually owned by KenGen, and it is the plant that is at Moroni?
Which is state-run.
Yes. So don't tell us about all these IPPs. We had.
Well, it's important.
Yeah, I'm coming to the IPPs. Okay. For the independent power producers, we had a notice in the newspaper as a Senate Energy Committee that we are opening investigations into how those people got those contracts, because we also believe that those contracts are unconscionable. And instead of us wasting time going around, in fact, I've said it even on the record, that we don't need to pussyfoot around this issue. If we entered into an unconscionable contract, we can cancel it. There is no problem. But you need to understand, when we had a retreat with these energy sector players, part of the problem, is that the entire northern Kenya is off the grid. We are served by over 30 diesel plants, including in places like Garissa and Wajir. All of those places are off the grid. We need to expand our grid so that every single Kenyan is on the grid. It will reduce reliance on this diesel generation, which is the most expensive power. And on the IPPs, we will give a report, because we have already called these people. We want to unearth the identities of the faces behind them. But there was also an explanation that was given to the committee by Kenya Power, that in fact the reason why you find cheap electricity being sold by KenGen from places like Takwel Gorge is because that plant's, I think there's a term they use, I don't know if it's amortization or something. The investment has already been recovered, so that the only thing that is running now is what? Is the operational cost. And then they came to the question of these IPPs, that most of the investment is done in US dollars.
Okay.
And therefore, when the dollar plummets the way it is doing right now, you see something called a forex adjustment charge on your bill. That is because the investment was in USD, the investment has not been recovered. But we as an energy committee, I have told you the steps that we have taken. What we want to see is some resolve on the part of government. If we as the energy committee have said, we need to take out our thermal plant so that we can reduce the fuel cost charge, just be brave and do it. But because they are the ones selling diesel to these plants, they don't want to do it.
Okay, and here is the point, because according to a report handed over to former President Uhuru Kenyatta by the Professor John Ngumi report, which was to look into the power crisis in the country, he said it's near inconceivable that Kenya Power was not adequately monitoring the IPPs. Management is helpless, incompetent, and there is defiance within the energy sector.
I agree, and you see, this is the point. The point to make from this conversation is this: when we as lawmakers put aside our political differences and actually focus on solving problems of Mwananchi, we can actually do it.
Thank you.
Because the energy committee, the majority people in the energy committee is not us, the minority side. It is the Kenya Kwanza.
Thank you.
But my chairman, Senator Matinga, we can never agree on the maandamano, but at least this one, we agree, and we are going to do something.
It's good that you have raised that very substantial.
And it's actually good that Senator Sifuna is actually telling the public what his role is, representation of his people, and he does that through the floor of the House, because of course, like the Constitution says, that power belongs to the people and they can exercise it directly or through representation. What Senator Sifuna is actually doing is representing his people through the Senate. He does not need to go to Mandamano for matters.
Senator, let him...
for matters energy and electricity cost. I mean, he's already laid out measures that they are doing as the Senate committee to make sure that this thing is, is reviewed. And that is exactly what we are telling them. That the pretense of earning salary every month as members of parliament and still going to Mandamano should actually stop. And by the way, Senator Sifuna, you once told me, because Senator Sifuna has actually been my friend for several years.
Make sure you don't put words in my mouth.
No, you once told me that if or when William Ruto ascends to power, if it ever happens, he'll fly out of this country and go somewhere and live somewhere until he exits power. I don't know why. I think he doesn't have a passport. I'll help him. But the point is this, Ayub, that you cannot cure chronic malaria through prescription of Panadol. You need all measures taken, and doctors would say that, to make sure that this person is well cured. And that is what subsidy was about. That the cost of living was high, according to them then. They brought subsidy limited to a certain jurisdictions, specific supermarkets. If those supermarkets do not exist in your jurisdiction or in your town, in your area, in Nyamira or any other place, then you still buy your price at 270, and it only happened for a week. That is curing the malaria that people had with Panadol. And that is what we are saying.
Thank you. I'll come to Khalid because we need to sample the feedback of the viewers as well. But Honorable Soro, as also a member of the National Assembly, I want to bring to your attention a bill that was brought to the floor of the House by Benjamin Gathiro Mwangi in December 2020. And this was a very important bill that had sought, amongst other issues, all foreign tenders source not less than 40% of their supplies from local contractors, increase the amount for tenders where Kenyan citizens are given exclusive preference from 500 million Kenya shillings to 20 billion Kenya shillings. The week that Parliament rejected these, where were you?
They rejected what? Where was I?
Well, the proposal is that the Committee of the House, while presenting the proposals as per the report that we have done, MPs sought at the same time, to already elevate the high comfort of threshold in the House, including by providing complimentary massages, facials, haircuts, pedicures, manicures, because they handle a lot of stress.
No. That is the creation of the media.
Well, not the media. This was a bill in Parliament.
But I'm saying the entire creation of the media that, we focus on non-important issues other than the important factors. And that is a lie.
But you remember this bill?
I remember, and I know it. I sit in the House Business Committee myself.
Which was, amongst other issues, to address job issues in the country and employment of the young people coming to the backdrop of the pandemic. That's very same year when we confirmed the first case.
Exactly.
Why did MPs reject such an important bill?
You see, members of Parliament have got diverse way of thinking and taking issues, and really it's a house of debate. Like Sifuna rightly put it, that sometimes they oppose some bills from government, but I mean, the majority have their way, and that is very common to us as members of Parliament. If the proposal of the bill is not convincing enough on anything, then the chances of survival are minimal. And that is really, it happens every day. Even government loses bills sometimes.
But Honorable Soro, with no regard for political party affiliation and belonging to your party, United Democratic Alliance party member, an ODM party member, and very other party members in the National Assembly because of the cocktail. But why then do you overlook what would have otherwise been a boost to local manufacturing, local creators, innovators in a country where manufacturing is still a problem?
I want to deviate a little bit. I really do not think exactly. And
just answer the question.
No, that is what I'm doing, Sifuna. I'm saying this. Basically, the process of a bill is not like you said, he presented in December and then it was rejected at that very point. There is a bill and there is a motion, and I think people need to really differentiate that. What Honorable Major Donk brought in the floor of the House is actually a motion to discuss, not the bill. When you draft the bill, it has got processes. That there is an element of public participation. It goes to the committee stage and such like that. So whatever that was brought in the floor of the House then was merely a motion to discuss, not a bill to pass or fail.
Interestingly, Khalid, hang on. Interestingly, that very same week in which you rejected this, a committee of the House was presenting proposals on what I've mentioned earlier. I mean, where does the priority lie for Kenya?
And that is exactly what I'm telling you. That the National Assembly or even Parliament generally has a provision for motions and bills. What we discuss in the National Assembly or in the plenary is not entirely a bill, or sometimes it's a motion, and a motion is discussed and ends at that stage, sharing ideas and such like that. It's never denied or asked. What you should be asking me is, at the stage the bill was denied, there was no such a bill. There was a motion of such nature, and it was discussed. You denying it in the floor of the House or accepting it in the floor of the House is inconsequential if it doesn't come in a form of a bill. So I propose that Major Donk, Honorable Benjamin, brings it as a form of a bill. It goes through the stages, and then it will pass.
So if it comes up again, you will support it?
We will support it. We will support it.
Ayub, politicians, just like lawyers, and we're taught this in law school, we'll always find a defense. You know, so we can go about this on and on and on, and there will always be a defense. But, you know, there are certain issues that are very clear. Yeah, for us, for example, in civil society, where we are as a country, you know, the rising cost of living and everything, and then 50 CSs, those are hundreds of millions every month that could
5 billion
go,
after 5 years, 5.4
could actually
billion.
go into, whether it's subsidies or anything, but to improve the lives of Kenyans. And even so, even after the courts have declared themselves on this issue, we're seeing, you know, clearly, you know, ministers and the CSs deciding to ignore the court rulings. And these are issues that we all have to speak to, and we have to be very, very clear to everyone. And these are the issues that Kenyans want to see the legislators, the senators, the MPs addressing. So for me, it's clear. And we have to find ways of communicating this to our leaders.
Thank you.
That even us as Kenyans, even as, you know, the two sides now feel like they cannot take more from each other, even Kenyans can reach that point. That we think now these leaders, now obviously we need to do something about these leaders.
Thank you.
So this again, we're appealing to the leaders. Please, let's not go that direction.
Thank you. Senator, let's sample some feedback. Maybe they are amongst some of the people who voted for you. Here's what's coming up on the hashtag Daybreak at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This first tweet comes from Honorable Lillian Sioi. She says, what if the reality we have to face is as follows? Raila Odinga chooses patriotism and presents his grievances in a structured manner for the sake of our stability as a nation, or he continues with the demos that will destabilize the economy. Kiprono Abraham 1 says, Azimio Brigade and sympathizers ought to know or made aware that unga prices is controlled in the shambas, not streets. They should direct their protests to farms, and they can be rest assured that unga prices will come down. Chesinga K says, I can only hope that Mandamano this Thursday is less tragic. I have no control to stop or control it. All I can offer is prayer to the already affected family and businesses. Kenya Mushoki says violent mass action only leaves a trail of destruction and despair in its wake. Instead of bringing about positive change, it tears apart the fabric of society and destabilizes the country. Let's pursue peaceful dialogue for a better future. Tawakal says the cost of living is high all over and not just in Kenya. Senator Sifuna and MPs should address these issues through parliament and not call for protests every day. The protests are becoming destructive to our already ailing economy. Isaac Anasko Mudhusi says during Azimio Mandamanos, many pupils don't go to school, many businesses remain closed. How are they, Azimio, achieving their objectives?
Exactly.
Remy Butia says Kenya is the gateway to Eastern Africa market, the regional logistics hub, the leading regional financial hub, the leading destination for foreign direct investment and venture capital. Has the Silicon Savannah, let's not ban this country. Chalo Wood Rosie says the reckless remarks by Kimani Ichung'wah on private properties of Uhuru Kenyatta led to what happened. He should be investigated. The absence of the police on the day when the property was vandalized made us to believe that the government knew what was happening. Dopa Diraj says the two leaders should care about the well-beings of Kenyans, the businesses of Kenyans, and the damage that the protests are bringing, because I strongly, he says, believe that the Mandamano are bringing more harm than good. Agumba Steve says Osoro is asking where the police were, yet he should, on behalf of the government, answer that. Let the government stop these gimmicks and address the general country's concerns like the economy. Church thumping will only increase the tension and bring more chaos. Well, we are out of time.
Nobody supports this.
We are 13 minutes past, but I'll give you closing remarks. Briefly, please. Senator, briefly, Hussein, briefly, Osoro. Yes.
Just two things. I know that Osoro understands that when you're elected to represent people, representation does not only happen on the floor of parliament. I have seen him at funerals, at public barazas, presenting petitions about a polytechnic here on top of the roof of his car. So the problem we have is that as a representative, I have no challenges engaging in debate on the floor, except that we are being stifled, and it is very difficult for us to get, our points across. Just on Tuesday, we wanted to have, we brought a motion as a minority in the Senate to have a discussion on the deteriorating insecurity in the country. The majority voted not to have the debate, and yet it's a house of debate. So once I get stuck in Parliament, I have every right to address my people on what the issues are. Lastly, if I leave this country, and I leave that mama who gave me that sufuria in Kibera in the hands of these characters.
Yes.
Yeah, I will not expose the people who elected me. Let me be here to fight for them, and until I am unable to fight anymore,
thank you,
I will be here.
Okay.
Yes, Hussein.
Just 3 points. One, for protesters, yes, it's your constitutional right to protest, and no one is stopping you from doing that. But please, take responsibility. Let's make sure there's no violence. To the police, the second one, you have a duty to protect life and property, but do not use excessive force. And lastly, to the leaders in this nation,
thank you,
particularly the two who are seated by my side, let us stop the grandstanding, the chest thumping. Let's find a way of working together to pull this nation forward.
Thank you.
I think that's, for me, is the main message as we end this show.
Yes, Honorable Soro.
Mine is to tell Kenyans to go to work and focus on building themselves. The Maandamano leaders, or those people who are telling you to go to Maandamano, are actually fighting for their own selfish interests. Immediately they are called and given anything, you will see them saying everything is fine, like you saw last time when Raila said that, watu waache kubweka when people raised about the cost of living. So just go to work, wake up in the morning, the country is safe, the captain is in control, His Excellency the President, relax, the economy will stabilize, Maandamano will not reduce the cost of living.
We ended at that. Senator Nairobi County Edwin Sifuna, the ODM Party Secretary General and the Deputy Minority Whip. Good morning. Thank you for your time. Are you heading to the protest?
Yes, you can see I'm dressed for the protest.
Hussein Khalid is the Executive Director of Haki Africa. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Ramadan Karim, and as well as Silvana Sosoro, the West Mugirango Member of Parliament and the Majority Whip at the National Assembly. 15
South Mugirango.
But a discussion worthy on the state. South
yes.
Mugirango. Thank
What's
you
the
for your
difference?
Time.
North,
South. West is in the middle.
See you next time. Good morning.